So I legitimately believe that within the next 3 years, I'm gonna be buying my first rental property before I'm 22. I mean, I have enough cash on hand to be putting 5% down right now in somewhere in my local market, and I just got my real estate license, I'm working a 9 to 5, and I'm starting YouTube. So personally, I think I'm in a really good spot to do one, but it's not necessarily for everybody to be buying a house. What's up guys, my name is Mateo Hall, and I want to talk to you a little bit about the pros and cons of buying a house versus renting one out, because there's a really good argument for both, and I recommend that everyone start by renting out a home because there's a lot of stuff that you don't think about when you're buying your first house. First, I want to talk a little bit about why I personally want to be buying my own home. Ideally, I would be house hacking this house, living in a duplex or a triplex in one of the units. If you don't know what house hacking is, it's when you buy either a 2 or a 3 unit building, you live in one of the units and rent out the other one. That way the other units would be able to cover either a portion or most of your mortgage. And if you do this right, you could potentially live in this house pretty much for free. So if you haven't watched it already, I'll link it down in the description, but in my previous video, I showed you guys this calculator that I made for buying a house. This includes a lot of things that you don't think about, like maintenance, vacancy costs, and repairs that you're going to be doing through the house. Because on paper, you could have a $1,000 mortgage and a $1,200 rental cost, and you'll think, wow, yeah, I'll just buy a house. That mortgage is much cheaper. Except some of the things that a lot of people don't think about when they're buying that house is property taxes that you're going to be paying every single year. You have to get the roof replaced every now and then. If your sprinkler system blows out, then it's on you to fix that instead of your landlord. So the reason that I want to buy a house is, personally, I think it's the fastest way to grow your net worth and the most efficient way. Plus, if I'm a real estate agent, that's going to be my niche. I'm going to know that really well already, so why not capitalize on it? A lot of people make the argument that if you buy a house, you're locked down in one area and you can't ever move. That's just plain not true. Because as long as you live in that house for 1 year, which if you're going to be renting somewhere else out, I assume that you're going to be living there for about a year anyway, at least. So if you live in this house as a main place of residence for a year, you can get a conventional loan on it. After you live in it for a year, you could just rent that place out and move somewhere else. I was talking to a friend about this the other day, and one big worry that they had is that they don't want to stay in one place their entire life, and I honestly don't know if I'm going to be staying here my entire life in this city, but I do know that I'm going to be buying property in this city. So I'm not going to be waiting 10 years to see whether or not I want to move when I can be building up a foundation here, and then say I do want to move somewhere else, I just leave these properties rented and I move. Hire a property manager. Let's get into the specifics of why you probably clicked onto this video. Why would you buy a house versus renting a house? So let's talk about some of the pros of renting first. With renting, you're always going to be paying the same fixed amount every single month that you're living in this house. You don't have to worry about any maintenance costs. If your refrigerator breaks somehow, you give the landlord a call, you tell him, hey Billy, the refrigerator just blew out, could you send someone over to fix it? Yeah, sure, we'll have someone over soon, sorry about that. And it's the landlord's problem, you don't have to worry about it at all. Granted, depending on the terms of your lease and how kind your landlord is, you might have a rental increase every year or every couple of years, but that'll usually stay pretty consistent and you can budget accordingly. It usually increasing roughly with inflation. And renting is super easy. You don't have to worry about how much you're going to owe on property tax on this because you don't own the property. But then again, you don't own the property. One of my big problems with renting is that I see you making non-equitable payments towards this property every single month. Every month that you're paying your landlord $1,200, you're paying him that $1,200 a month for the right to use the land, and that's it. You don't necessarily even get say on to what color you paint the walls if the landlord doesn't want that. When you're renting out a property, your freedoms are a lot more limited. Personally, that doesn't bother me too much. You can see that my walls are all whited out here, and it's been that way since I moved in. But say that you did want to paint a Starry Night all over your bedroom, and the landlord says no. Well, that sucks, because you can't really do anything about it besides move out and try to find a landlord that will let you do that. Now, there's also the rare chance that it's not guaranteed that you're going to be able to renew your lease. Say that your landlord wants to increase rents a lot and you just don't agree with that, or maybe they want to move back into the property or sell the property and the buyer doesn't want any tenants in there, then you have to move out and find somewhere new. Granted, at the same time, you could do that same thing. If you no longer want to live in this property at the end of your lease, you can pick all your stuff up and move to a new one to the other side of town. And that's pretty much it for renting. It's really simple. And I think that's the appeal to a lot of people, is that they don't want all the complications that come with owning a home, and when you're renting, it just makes everything easier. But if you're willing to put the investment in, that's when things start to get fun. So let's talk about actually owning your home. Now, there's two different ways that you can own your home. There's the way that the vast majority of the population is going to do it, and there's the way that the really lucky rich people are going to do it. Let's go over the really lucky rich people first, because that's going to be a lot easier to talk about. Now, these people will buy their home in cash outright, and they won't have a mortgage expense whatsoever on it. Only thing they really have to do if they're living in there is worry about maintenance and taxes. And then if they're renting the place out, they could guarantee that they're going to be cash flowing on it because they've paid for the place in full. I don't really like paying for a property in cash, even if you have the cash to do it, just because you don't get the proper write-offs for it. Now, if you buy a house and you get a mortgage on it, which is how the vast majority of people are going to do, that's when things start to become a little bit more interesting and when you really have to start running the numbers, but that's also when you can make the most money. Let's talk about breaking down your mortgage first. When paying down your mortgage, you're going to have your principal pay down and you're going to have your interest payments. Your principal pay down is really just moving money from one account to another because you still own that money as equity in the house. What your interest payment is the privilege of being able to have a loan and leverage your money to the bank. I mean, you could own a $400,000 property for as little as $14,000 with 3.5% down. So if you put that $14,000 down on a $400,000 house and it appreciates by just 4% that year, you'll have doubled your money. So let me explain that real quick. So you have a $400,000 house, and appreciation, in my area at least, is about 4% each year on a property. So in my local area, you can expect about a 4% annualized appreciation rate on average each year. That means that our $400,000 home next year will be worth about $416,000. And if you only put $14,000 into the home to begin with, you just got a free $16,000 owning that home. So the money that you put in for your down payment just doubled. That's 100% return. Tell me where else you're going to get 100% return on your money. Not only that, but if you choose to rent out your properties and you can get it to cash flow, then you're going to be making even more on that property by the money that you're getting each and every month, which is pretty much going to pay down your mortgage, and the rest you set aside for savings on that property, because again, there's going to be maintenance costs, which we talked about in renting. So a really big cost that people completely ignore when they're buying is maintenance. Have a maintenance budget, especially if you have renters, because renters are not going to treat a house nearly as nice as you would. Sure, you're going to have the nice renters every now and then that treat a home like it's their own. I know that's the way my family was when we were renting for a really long time, is that we had pride in the home and our landlords loved us for that. But everyone has that nightmare tenant that doesn't care about the property, that lets weeds grow everywhere, that has trash sitting all around and completely wrecks the property, and you're gonna have to pay a ton in order to get it back up to a rental condition. That's why I had such a big budget towards maintenance in my housing calculator. Again, I'll leave another link to that down in the description below. Now, remember when we said that every year your rent payment may go up a little bit because of your lease? That's not going to happen with your mortgage. If you get a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, you're going to be paying that same amount every single year. So while inflation is going to be increasing by 2%, your mortgage is going to be staying exactly the same. In 30 years, your $1,200 that you're paying is going to be effectively a lot less than it is right now. Just think about how cheap gas was 20 years ago. If you weren't alive 20 years ago, look up how cheap gas was 20 years ago. Now, another big pro with owning real estate is you're going to get tax write-offs. The one thing that may increase on your cost to own this home every single year is your property tax valuation. But guess what? When you're renting a property, they're going to bake in the property tax to your rent. So if your property tax goes up an effective rate of $50 a month, guess what? Your rental price is also going to go up $50 a month to cover that cost. Tax write-offs. You get to write off property tax. That's a big one. The other big one is for the vast majority of home buyers using your mortgage. Everything that you don't pay towards equity, you get to write off every penny of interest that you pay. Not only are your equity payments just moving from one bank account to another, so the interest payments that you're doing each month are a tax write-off. So effectively, you're paying even less each month. Maintenance costs, repairing a house, putting in a new roof, that could be a tax write-off too. Talk to a CPA for all of this because everyone's scenario is different. I'm not a licensed CPA and I can't stress this enough. Don't just blindly listen to some guy on the internet. Now you own a home, you're building an equity, you're writing off a ton of taxes. Where do you go from here? You do it all over again. You buy another home. You write off even more taxes. You're building in even more equity. You're cash flowing all of these properties and you're renovating them. And suddenly you're a millionaire. The way that I'm going to be a millionaire before I'm 30 is through real estate. I can guarantee that. Because leveraging in your money in a smart way, Dave, is in my opinion one of the best ways to build your wealth. But I will tell you right now, also don't just go out and buy the first property that you see. Because the numbers don't always work on everything. Do your research. Get a good real estate agent. Run the numbers. See if it works for your financial situation. Can you afford these maintenance costs? Or can you barely afford the mortgage? Then I would say you're probably not ready to buy a home yet. That's one of the reasons that I say it's going to be in the next 3 years that I buy a home, because I don't have nearly enough of a safety net built up in order to protect myself in case something really bad happens. And I really don't want something really bad to happen. So starting next year, I'm going to be renting somewhere with some roommates and good friends of mine. Every dollar that I'm able to save, I'm going to, because I want to get into real estate fast. I'll be putting a lot of it in index funds, and if you want, you can just keep doing that. You can keep investing in stocks. I'll even get you guys started. If you go down to the description, there's a link to Robinhood. Just by starting up an account, you'll get a free stock. Right below that, there'll be a link to Webull. Sign up for an account and deposit $100 and you'll get 3 free stocks. It's a nice, easy, and safe return. And personally, I love it. So if you like this video, found it helpful at all, please subscribe, leave a like. We've been growing like crazy lately. Thank you so much for the shout out. If any of you guys are here from the Grand Stefan Show, it's amazing. I will be making a video soon on how I calculate the podcast salary. It's honestly not too hard, but it's a ton of fun. I have an alarm going to see when it is. Thank you so much, Graham. Remember to leave a like and subscribe. Thank you, everybody, and I'll see you next time until we continue our financial journeys.